Can you help me out? Spare change?
Do you recognize that guy? That's actually me with a beard glued to my face. I'd heard that panhandlers can make enough money begging, often more than $100 a day, so that they don't bother looking for jobs. So can you really make that much? I tested the theory. At first I tried the basic homeless and cold, anything will help sign. After half an hour I switched to this sign.
Can I get a beer?
I'd seen beggars trying this more honest, or you might say funny approach. I didn't think anyone would give this guy money, but I was wrong.
Thank you. I just begged for an hour, but I did well. If I did this for an 8-hour day, I would have made $90. $23,000 for a year. Tax-free.
I was smiling there, but it's really no joke. I did make that much and thought it was a good introduction to the topic of freeloading. But some viewers called my doing it disgusting. On a Media Matters blog, Indigo wrote, "What I did was obscene. Stossel acts as if homeless people are pulling a lucrative scam." Well, they are, say Steve Malanga and Heather McDonald of the Manhattan Institute. They've studied panhandling. It's a lucrative scam.
Well, certainly in many cases, the people who are doing it aren't actually homeless. As a number of studies have shown, they're actually living at home, as investigations have shown. And yes, they are taking money from you and then turning right around and using it to...
But lucrative scam? These are largely poor people.
Well, they're poor because they choose not to work, at least in the case of the young punks that I studied in San Francisco. These are able-bodied, full mental capacity kids who should be out there working. And if you don't work, yes, you're going to be poor, but that's a completely voluntary situation they put themselves in.
And you've also written, and we have a clip on this, that they have a deep-seated sense of entitlement. So here's more from the Freeloaders show. Panhandling as a job is common in some places. Here in San Francisco, packs of young, healthy kids beg for spare change. Spanging, they call it.
Gotta survive, you know. Gotta eat, gotta drink.
An art student from Stanford interviewed some of the kids.
Wake up in the morning and start drinking, go to bed, do it again. That's pretty much it.
So you portray this as kids having fun, but my emails are saying this is distorted. You just picked a few isolated examples.
Oh, John, it's a whole culture out there. These are kids that find it cool to ask other people to give them money. To me, this is a very worrisome sign about the sense of entitlement in our culture. It tells me that the welfare rights movement of the 1960s that tried to remove all stigma from being on the dole was fantastically successful, because these kids feel no shame about the basic philosophy which is you have more money than I do, therefore we're going to tip the field and I deserve it. I think this is really a pathetic mindset that these young kids have.
Okay, the young kids. I see people begging who are not young kids. I assume some of the beggars are truly desperate, needy, maybe homeless people.
Well, we have a whole array of social services in many cities to address the needs of precisely those people, and we have traditional charities in addition to government that does that. And in fact, many charities will tell you, don't give to the homeless on the street because you don't even know how they're using the money.
Instead, you're doing a bad thing by giving. You're enabling their alcoholism or their drug habit.
Right. So the only way we think that we're in some way depriving them is if we ignore this entire social service apparatus that we have in our society that's designed to serve those people.
But some people would say you guys are just heartless conservatives who are spinning it this way.
I think
the Manhattan Institute is a conservative group.
It has nothing to do with being heartless or being conservative. It has to do with a unblinkered look at the reality that people who do need help, who are mentally ill or physically ill, are not getting it on the streets. What they're getting is a no strings attached fund in order to get high and drunk.
So I think I'm doing something humane by giving them something.
You're not. You're merely perpetuating their condition. And there are costs beyond the individuals, which is cities are dragged down when you have that degree of urban squalor. And people are right to fear that some panhandlers pose a threat. People who are mentally ill and are not getting treatment have higher rates of violence than the population.
So just walk on by.
Walk on by, and if you want to suggest go to your local soup kitchen, which in most cities are ubiquitous, you can do that.
All right, you can't. It's really hard to starve in America,
Well,
in any city.
the poor, obviously in America, are obese. The starvation is not our problem.
Thank you, Heather McDonald, Steve Malanga. Both of them write for City Journal, which is filled with serious research I don't see anywhere else. Recommend it. Coming up, my next guest says I smeared him and his legitimate company. His company helps people walk away from mortgages even if they can afford to pay them. Did I smear him? You decide. That's next. Are you a freeloader if you walk away from your mortgage? Let's say you bought at the peak of the bubble. Your house now is worth less than the mortgage, so it would pay off for you financially to just let the house go back to the bank. But is that the right thing to do? You signed a contract saying you'd pay, and you can afford to. In my Freeloaders show, I criticized the head of a company called YouWalkAway.com because it helps people just walk away. I mean, there sounds something dirty about that, like walk away from responsibility.
Well, that's the myth, I think, in society, that there's this moral obligation to continue paying a mortgage.
There is.
There is no ethical obligation.
You guys are disgusting. You're helping people freeload.
We're not helping people freeload. You know, people's decision to walk away is a personal one and is a financial one.
But isn't it immoral?
No.
So, Chad Rule wasn't happy with my reporting, and he's here now to say so. So, what was wrong?
Well, we got a lot of feedback from our customers and new customers that weren't happy because their side wasn't really represented, and the argument wasn't explained. That in the
their side is that they walk away and don't pay.
Sure, but it's not as simple as saying that they owe this mortgage, they have to continue paying it, because the mortgage says that if they don't pay it, the bank gets the house back. So it's different than other contractual obligations because there's collateral in the property. So they're not doing anything illegal. They're not breaking their word. They're following the terms of the contract.
Well, I never said they were doing anything illegal, but aren't they breaking their word? I mean, here's a mortgage contract. I shall pay the debt at the time and in the manner provided.
Read on, and it says, but if you don't, then the bank gets the house back. We penalize you. So you're not getting off free and clear. And the best example I can use is, I mean, if you are in a cell phone contract, would you think twice about switching if you could get better coverage? Of course, you have to pay a penalty. But if you want to switch over to a new carrier, people wouldn't think twice about breaking that contract.
Well, I see the logic, but it seems like a mortgage is different. For one thing, as people foreclose, your neighbors' property values go down. A number of studies done on that. And even on your website, you say, what if you could live payment-free for 8 months or more and walk away without owing a penny? I mean, that sounds like freeloading. That's a come on.
You know, people, we educate them as how long they're able to stay in the house. So that goes to, you know, how quick the bank would react and remove them from the home. And
8 months or more, isn't it?
And it actually helps the bank out, because if people just abandon their properties and move out like they think they have to, then the properties go to waste. The lawns get unkept. And to your argument about what happens to your neighbor, that would ruin their values even more.
All right, well, so you collect about $995 for every client who you help. Some of them stay in the home for longer than 8 months, up to 2 years?
I know people that have been in over 2 years.
Your business partner once, when you started this business, said, is this legal?
Well, he came to me as an attorney and wanted to know what the process was for people, because I got a lot of questions from clients and friends saying, you know, I'm facing this predicament of foreclosure. What are my rights? What's the process like? So in looking into it, you know, there are lots of rights that these homeowners have. It's not like the bank can...
But doesn't his question suggest even your business partner thought this might not be right?
No, I mean, he wanted to know what the process was. You know, I think that's the biggest reason I wanted to come back on the show was to really explain that I think the homeowners are getting misportrayed by the media, that they have this obligation. They're the ones that should bear the burden of this crisis. I think the real freeloaders are the banks. They're the ones who took government money through TARP. They're the ones who should have hedged their bets better with collateral in the property, interest rates. So they're taking this money.
The banks are freeloaders. They're getting zero interest loans.
And they're getting off pretty much scot-free. And it's the homeowners or the people that have to bear the burden here.
Well, but whatever the banks do, that doesn't excuse the homeowner who just makes the decision, I'll walk away, because that makes mortgages cost the rest of us a little more. Every time somebody defaults, the bank has to say, okay, we're going to better make up for that by charging people more.
Sure. I mean, they don't need to be excused for anything. They're making a decision for themselves, for their family. And I understand there's a social argument that if you walk away, you're affecting your neighbors, you're affecting, the country as a whole in home values. But when someone makes a decision, I think they need to look out for their interest, their family's interest. Some of these people, you'd say, might be able to afford this mortgage, but that could cost their retirement. It might be their retirement money that they'd have to come up with. And these people aren't simply just walking away. They're looking at their other options. They're looking at short sales. They're looking at loan modifications. And the difficulty is the banks aren't willing to work with them. They're very frustrated in trying to get something through with the bank.
All right. Well, I'm glad you came and you got to have your say. Chad Rule, thank you very much. Coming up, Ann Coulter's take on freeloading. But next, the nastiest anti-Stossel comments I got after my Freeloaders show came from people who were mad about what I said about government's handouts to American Indians. They called me ignorant, racist, a bigot. That's next.